could take on Xbox and PlayStation. Over the past few months, the wildest rumors in the video game industry circles haven't involved the PlayStation 5 or Xbox 2. The most interesting chatter has centered on a tech company that has been quietly making moves to tackle video games in a big way. Google, the conglomerate that operates our email, our internet browsers, and much more. We haven't heard many specifics about Google's video game plan, but what we have heard is that it is a three-prong approach. 1. Some sort of streaming platform. 2. Some sort of hardware. 3. An attempt to bring game developers under the Google umbrella, whether through aggressive recruiting or even major acquisitions. That's the word from 5 people who have either been briefed on Google's plans or heard about them secondhand. Google has been exploring video game initiatives for most of the decade. In 2014, the company was reportedly poised to acquire Twitch before Amazon swooped in. Rumors for years that Google was also attempting to launch an Android-based console similar to Amazon's Fire TV, but that did not happen in 2016. The Google studio, Niantic, scored one of the biggest gaming successes for the last decade with Pokemon Go, but it had spun out into an independent company the year before, and Google has a long history of hiring game developers for projects that never quite materialize. It's insane. We are now talking the fact that Google may be entering the fray with the game industry, and if you've been kind of reading the tea leaves recently, it makes sense because they have been experimenting with streaming tech when it comes to some games. Not too long ago, they had a test of playing the new Assassin's Creed Odyssey on a Google Chrome browser, but you had to have a certain amount of bandwidth to do so. So they've been dipping their toes in, and there's now sources saying that they have something for this year.
I mean, I know that like Google's a juggernaut, and I think that they know the uphill battle they're going to have to face to do this. They're going to have to bring something unbelievably impressive to win over a large enough audience to warrant this move.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, yeah, it's crazy to me that they would join now, with what's happening in the gaming industry. I think unfortunately some of them see it as a like, oh, things are weak in the gaming world right now, so we'll try to chime in now and get our licks in while people are like while these companies are trying to stand back up, and that's not the case. Like I hope that's not the case. Like I would be interested. Thank you, Valer. I would also be interested in seeing exactly how they handle it. Because like you said, like the article says, like they're trying to acquire either new IPs or old IPs to bring to the console. You can't just all of a sudden release a console and be like, hey guys, remember the game Gax? Not Gax, but Gex back in the day?
Hey,
remember Gex?
Hey, I like that. I would
love that game. I adored that game. I played all of them. But my point is like they can't just get a bunch of IPs from like the Sega Saturn or from the Jaguar and then do new versions of them and say, hey guys, buy our console because of this. It ain't gonna work that way. Like you really got to bring something hard
Absolutely
to get people to buy your console. And in today's day and age. So.
Absolutely, you definitely need something more than just acquisition.
Croc, yeah. Thanks, Croc, yeah.
Oh, hell yeah! If there's a Croc on a new version of that, I'll be all over that. With that aside, you're right. Like, there's definitely something that Google has to do. Like, they need to do something in order to, really entice people to really be on board with their console, their streaming console, and that's going to be something that I think that a lot of people are going to have questions about. But then I go back and I'll say this prior to me kind of talking about this, is that we had our doubts with companies like this before. Microsoft, again, nobody thought Microsoft was going to be able to have a console and the gaming infrastructure like they do today. Back then, before they entered the fray, people were doubting them just as much as we are doubting Google. Same with Sony. Sony was, before they entered, people doubted them because what do they know? The TVs, other stuff.
But you have to keep in perspective, at the time it was different. Nintendo was just like, well, we just had to crash, so like they had an uphill battle, but they also took a very smart move, unfortunately for certain aspects. But putting their console in the toy section versus the entertainment section, that was a very smart move. But also, like you look at Microsoft, and Microsoft just like dove right in, and had it not been for Halo, the Xbox would have died. Like full on.
Yeah.
You look at
Yeah.
sales, you look
Yeah.
at why Xbox is sold, and it's because of Halo 1 and 2.
Absolutely.
Hands fucking down. I mean, you look at like a game like the Dreamcast, or a system like the Dreamcast. And I know that Sega had already been in the game for a while, but they had an uphill battle because of the Saturn. And that system failed because they didn't have that killer IP.
And as much as you stated on this podcast, as much as I have as well, it's like the game console can be only as good as its games. If the game console came out and there are no good games on it, then not people are gonna buy it for a while until there is.
What's the point of buying a fucking $300 console if there's not a game that I want to play on it?
Yes,
or a game that I want to play it. I want to pay that much money enough to play.
Yeah, this reminds me.
Also,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
also, I want to see a future on that console. Like when I bought my Switch, I knew there was going to be stuff that I wanted to play down the road on my Switch, not just Mario Odyssey. When I buy the PlayStation 4, am I just going to play God of War and Spider-Man and whatever else they have coming out that's a an original IP, and it just sits on my shelf the whole time? Like, it's harder for me to justify spending that money on a PS4 than it does on an Xbox right now.
Yeah.
Because like if that's just the way that it works. Google has to do something different. They have to do something that makes people want to spend that much money on their console.
And the question becomes like, how much will that new console be for Google? If you're Google and you're making a streaming console, did you want to sell to people? Like, what price would that be? Like, would you range it 200? Less than that, maybe?
I think what Google needs to do is what Valve tried to do. And that's basically create a console that allows you to buy games via Steam and use a mouse and keyboard on it.
Yeah.
That right there would be enough to warrant me buying that system.
I'm very curious. I'm very curious what they do, because like they.
Same here. I'm super curious.
Because like I'm kind of wondering what their plan of attack is. Like, what do they plan to do with a streaming console? And I think that the talk of streaming when it comes to games in the game industry has picked up in the past year. So I feel like this is also a trend that it's also going to become more apparent as years goes on. But in terms of Google right now, the one thing I can think of for Google, and Google, if you're listening, you can take this. It's on me. So what I would really get me into a Google gaming device is that if Google announced the next console, it's a streaming console, that you plug it anywhere, anytime, into a monitor, to a TV, as long as you have internet access, you have access to these games at all times. And the games that they have, say that they're all third-party, high exclusive games that they can play on that platform. That makes it easier for them to plug and play, and then boom, you get to play Tomb Raider. You get to play fucking I want to say Anthem. I think is that Anthem's third party, right?
Yeah. So third party.
Yeah. So it's got to be something like that. It's got to be portable. It's got to be small, but it's also got to be at a price.
I don't think it needs to be. I don't think it needs to be portable. I don't think that you want to compete against Nintendo in that market. I think you want to compete, and they said it in the thing, like competing directly with Xbox and Microsoft. Sorry, Xbox and Sony, or Microsoft, Sony, whatever. And I honestly don't see that